Steve is an awesome guy, a great speaker, and I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself when he gets up here. So let's give Steve a welcome.
Thanks, Doug. Well, that's an easy billing. Steve's an awesome guy, so thanks. Okay, good night. No, it's really great to be here. I came last year, or gosh, maybe it was even 2 years ago at the Ford plant, and had a conversation. And boy, has the climate changed here in Minnesota, huh? I think solar, back in the day, I started with Mortenson a little over 6 years ago. And when we were talking about solar, the idea was go big or go home. And so we had to figure out where solar was going to go big in this country. And it was just starting to get utility scale wise. So we were in California a lot. We built about 5 projects in California. We built now 3 or 4 projects down in Texas. We've got 4 going in Georgia and 3 in Massachusetts. And then we built we built 4 projects in North Carolina. And, we built the St. John's Solar Farm here in Minnesota. So that's really the only thing that we've built, so far in Minnesota. And so we're really looking forward to this climate here. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what Mortenson does, and then we'll talk a little bit about renewable energy, talk about solar. And then I'm going to introduce Jesse Royer. Maybe some of you know Jesse. He joined us here at Mortenson and is going to be working on a lot of our community solar stuff. Jesse's going to talk a little bit about community solar. So before we get started, though, the way I like to do this stuff is to keep it very informal. What do you guys want to know about Mortenson? What do you want to know about solar? Can you just give me an idea of some of the things you like to hear about, and I'd hopefully can shed a little light on it. What do you want to hear? Yeah. I heard someone thinking over there. Sorry. Yeah.
How do you pick your partnerships to work with?
Okay.
Basics of the company.
Okay.
Ownership projects we're working on.
Okay. Cover that. Yeah.
Where do you see solar after the federal tax credit?
Good. Okay. Yep.
I was curious, it sounds like you speak to it, but what are you saying about community solar in Minnesota? Those projects hammering out, are there other opportunities you're seeing?
Sure. Good. Yeah.
There's potentially 500 to 600 megawatts going to the ground before the expiration of the tax credits here in Minnesota. How do you see managing the labor pool for approximately 4,000 workers in the city?
It's going to be a challenge, for sure. Well, I think, starting with that little point, I think it's what Laura was talking about on training and some of the challenges right now on the install and who's going to be doing it. I think those things have to be ironed out because I think that's going to be a significant hurdle to get enough people out there that are trained and that are capable of doing the work. So we'll have to keep on that. Everybody's got to help on that. Okay, well, so I'm going to go ahead and go with this presentation. Hopefully we can hit the major points that you talked about. Feel free to jump in and ask questions or, I don't know, heckling I really don't care for. But if you want to heckle, it's cool with me. All right. I don't like the way this reads, company overview and Solar Us. It's supposed to be Solar US. We get that. One of the things I want to just highlight, and many of you are probably native Minnesotans, and many of you are probably native metro area people, and others have been around the industry and for a long time. And the name Mortenson, it just doesn't happen. And the reason I'm at Mortenson is this guy right here, the young Mortenson, who just announced his retirement a couple weeks ago. I think he's like 78 years old. Mort is 78 years old. This statement, his dad had one purpose in mind, to build structures for the advancement of modern society. That culture continues in our company today. It's alive, it's real, and when we talk to each other, it's things like our mission statement in our solar group is to build structures and facilities, except we say to build sustainable structures and facilities for the advancement of modern society. That's our little addition to it, because in our work, we want to build as many sustainable facilities as we can. So, you know, when you hear mission statements and vision and you think, yeah, it's a bunch of platitudes and it's something some lawyers concocted, well, you know, these guys live it. And this is our mission, is to create an exceptional customer experience. Now, you would think for a construction company that our mission would be, yeah, we got to build a lot of things, do it really well, keep people safe, all that. That's true, but all that folds up into creating an exceptional customer experience. So, for instance, in our renewable energy groups, the wind and solar groups, the amount of recurring customers that we have is at 85%. And that's really, really good, because it's really expensive to find new customers. As you guys know that work in the industry, whether it's small or big or medium-sized, to prospect and to find and earn, you know, new customers costs a lot of money. And so if we can keep our customers satisfied and they have a great customer experience, then we'll get to do more work. We'll get to hire more people, and then they get to buy pizza and they get to eat. That's all good. Have children and do good things. So our purpose really hasn't changed, and in fact it's been strengthened by the values. And you can't read these values, but again, it sounds like a commercial, but I will tell you that it's true. The first value is trust, safety, responsibility, service, stewardship, and teamwork. So, you know, if you're a cynical person, which I do have a cynical edge, you've probably seen it, Sam. I look at that and I go, yeah, drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah, right. Great. But the truth is that if you don't have a legitimate, genuine, authentic set of values with a group of people that's now up to 4,000 people, with Mortenson and our craft laborers that are under our care, you know, it's not going to work. You have to have safety. It has to be a culture of safety. You have to have trust. You have to have stewardship. So one of the things I want to impart to you here tonight is to say, I feel proud to be a part of this organization, but I think we all, as a group of people that are in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, we can be proud of this company. This is not the only good construction company in town. You guys know that. But we can definitely be proud of this company, that it's a good Minnesota company that's working well. So, you know, a little bit of the background: family-owned, 60 years strong, 10 office locations, 9 industry groups. We try to be the leaders in technology and sustainability. But, you know, about 4,000. I talked to our HR person yesterday. She said that number is more like 4,000 employees now all over the country. And we are pretty strong. Through the tough environment, you take a look at the sales of the company. So it's 13 is 3.4 billion, and 14 was just a bit better than that. So, you know, we feel really fortunate to be stewards of that kind of amount of work that's going on. And then on top of it, you know, the backlog, and those of you in the business, and especially the install business and construction trades, will know that if you got backlog, you got pipeline. And if you got pipeline, then you can hire people. If you can hire people, then they can keep a job. You know, they can make a living, you can grow an economy. So it's all good stuff. Now, just to give you a graphic of where we're at, we have offices in Seattle, Portland, Phoenix, Denver. We just opened an office in San Antonio, Texas last year. And this is a really cool story. You probably don't think it's as cool as I do, because I lived it and it was pretty cool. But CPS Energy, one of the largest municipal utilities in the country, in fact, I think it is the largest, had an idea where they wanted to put a whole bunch of solar in San Antonio on their network. But they wanted to tie it up with job creation. So what they said, whatever developers out there that can develop 400 megawatts of solar and create 800 jobs, we'll give them the whole portfolio of projects. And so Keiko inverters, how many of you know the name Keiko or inverters? Okay. Keiko built a manufacturing facility in San Antonio. They got the job of being the inverters. Some other racking guys, Mission Solar built a facility. They got the job being the solar module folks. And these groups just said, okay, we'll invest in San Antonio to do this so we can help build this portfolio. Well, what we did is we won the construction contract to build these 400 megawatts. And we're in our third project now. We got a couple more to go. They're all named Alamo projects. So if you go online, look up Alamo, you'll see the actual fort, but then you'll see a bunch of solar projects too. And so we actually, by winning that and by doing that work, we could create a Texas office, which is something that we wanted to do for about 15 years. So solar pulled us into Texas. And solar has been really good for wind too, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so in solar, our company is the third largest EPC firm for utility scale solar. And that's based off of the megawatts that we installed in 2014. Now, and I'll show you a couple of these projects because maybe some of you have a little hard time on the scale of some of these projects because some of them are very, very large. And then, like Jesse's going to talk about, some of them are also, 1 megawatts and small. So we'll talk about that. Also, we're #1 wind contractor in 2014. And those of you that follow this kind of stuff, you'll know that Blattner out of Avon, Minnesota, or Mortenson are typically 1 and 2 going back and forth. And I think it's just a great testament, again, to some really good Minnesota companies. So the market expertise and kind of, I think, getting to the point of what we build and what we do. 3/4 of our sales came from wind, solar, healthcare, sports and assembly, education, mission critical, and the military. So those are the bigger market segments that we have and that we do our building. And I asked our folks to pull together some data for me. And I think this is pretty cool. Since 1976, Mortenson has built 175 sports and assembly projects. And the Excel Arena, Target Field, the Yum Center in Louisville, places like that. In Minneapolis alone, we built 80 of these projects in our 60 years, which I think is pretty cool. Hospitality projects, hotels, 31 of them in Minneapolis that we've built. And hospitals, this is kind of amazing. Since 1974 alone, we built 196 hospital projects, and in Minneapolis there's 28 of these projects. So a lot of the hospital stuff that we've done, there's been a lot done here in town. But this is the one that blows me away. We started our wind business in 1995. We started our solar business in the end of 2008, sold our first project in 2009. Since the time we started working in renewable energy, we've built 18,000 megawatts. 18,000 megawatts of wind and solar. And that to me is a pretty awesome statistic. So I said, well, how many wind farms did we build here in Minnesota? And how many megawatts? So over 1,700 megawatts of wind farms in Minnesota, 17 projects. And so, that's by virtue of being in renewable energy with the wind, we are able to stand on the shoulders of our wind team and grow solar. So that's why we got into solar. Okay. So the renewable energy groups, just to give you a little overview of what that means and who we are. Okay, so I talked to you about solar, notable projects, SunPower, Solar Star 1 and 2. Have anybody heard of that? Solar Star 1 and 2? Okay, this is the old Antelope Valley solar project. This project, when it's commissioned, will be 747 megawatts DC. And we had we took part in building that. We took the scope of services with civil. We did the piers. We did all the torque tube and pier assemblies, and we did some of the general conditions. for this project. That one is 4,300 acres in size. I mean, I don't know. Go online and look at it because it's just like, you are kidding me. And the company was SunPower that provided the equipment. Mid-American Energy owns it, bought it for a little over $1.2 billion, I think. And so now the thing is almost done, and they got FAA approval to fly a drone over the site. And I've seen the video of this, and it's just awesome. It's really crazy, but it's a big one. Then we're doing some other projects, Citizens Energy. We're doing projects in Massachusetts and Georgia, like we talked about. And the OCI Solar, that's a San Antonio project. So wind, they said established in 1998, but that's not really true. This was established in 1995, where a local attorney came to one of our guys in wind and said, look, I've got a customer that wants to build one windmill in Adair, Iowa, in the middle of a cornfield. Could you do it? And he said, yeah, I think we can do that. And then from that beginning, I mean, one guy said, yeah, I think we can, we'll figure it out. I mean, I can't tell you how many millions of dollars of business we did and 18,000 megawatts. I mean, so if you ever think you can't do something, one person can make a huge difference. And that may also sound like a bunch of crap, but I believe that's true. Pacific Wind Project, Prairie Rose, Muscle Shoals, Bobcat, all of these projects throughout the United States. There's some just beautiful projects. Some on the islands in Hawaii that we built that are right on the edge of the cliff, right where the trades come through. Great wind resource. In 2012, we established a high voltage transmission group, and the biggest reason for that was we're looking at all this transmission and substation work that was happening on our wind projects, and we said, geez, I bet we could do that. So we started training our people, and so we will self-perform, and we do self-perform in the U.S. and Canada, our transmission work in high voltage. And then our civil group, it's the same thing. We were, looking at our wind sites especially, and then our solar sites, and saying, boy, if we had our own people, we could control that scope, we can control that schedule, we can control that cost, and so we branched out and did our own civil. So one of the interesting things to remember is that Mortenson now has the ability to self-perform everything in solar, and mostly in wind too. But in solar, we really try to differentiate ourselves. We will still hire local labor. We always do that. But we try to self-perform and have our superintendents and foremen and our project managers, Mortenson people. So there's a question about how do you pick your partners, and that's kind of an interesting question because I think it's fairly loaded. And when the community solar opportunities were going through the legislature and we were watching those, we were solely building utility scale projects and outside of Minnesota. And some of the interactions that we have in Colorado with SunShare in particular and others around the nation. And when the Minnesota program started to come to fruition, a friend of mine in the company called me and he said, hey, let's talk. And so we talked. So the way we picked the SunShare partner was started with a personal relationship, with trust, and I knew the fellow. We had done some work together. The interesting part about that is that's not an exclusive relationship. So we're talking to others in this room and others out there on the street to also build for them. But partnering with people is a big deal, and you try to do your due diligence as best as you can. But the way we pick our partners is we have hopefully established trusting front-end relationships first, and that's kind of how that started. We call ourselves leaders in solar, and I guess that because of the number of megawatts, that's true. And I don't want to act like, I have a term, but I can't use it because he's recording me. We want to be modest about it and say, hey, we feel like we've really progressed through this industry and learned a lot. But we do have over 1.2 gigawatts of solar that we've either built or in construction or that we're selected for in our pipeline to build. And I don't know if most of you remember the Back to the Future movies. Okay, how much power did it take for the DeLorean if it hit 88 miles an hour to go back in time? How much power? 1.21 gigawatts, right? So for our annual meeting last year for our solar team, our goal was 1.21 gigawatts. And we're there. So now I guess I don't know what I'm going to do this year for the annual meeting, but I only got a month to figure that out.
We can use all that and go back in time.
What's that?
We can use that and go back in time.
We could go back and do it again. That's true.
And start it all over.
So we've actually 20 projects since 2008. That number's wrong too. It's 34 projects. A reliable, bankable EPC partner, self-perform. I talked a little bit about this lean innovation thing. After Jesse's little part of this here, we're going to talk a little bit about lean innovation. Everybody talks about the cost of solar and how it's reaching parity, and we're all in this at the right time because that's happening. Different parts of the country, depending on electrical rates, is going to be, how viable it is or not. But we really feel that the cost of solar, the part that we can contribute to, is by making the install most efficient, buying smart, being safe, but applying lean principles and going through this continuous improvement process. We're really big on that. It's legit. I mean, we have guys, they're called process stewards on our big solar sites. And these guys don't report to the project manager. I don't know who they report. They report to the director of operations, I guess. But they go around and they time each of the events, each of the discrete movements of the install. They time them. And then what we have is an idea board where we capture all the craft labor and all the foremen and all the superintendents' ideas. We have a process that we go through, and we take those ideas and we implement them. And then we write a standard work instruction. So we capture that, and they'll do it the same way each time. But these guys are walking around timing each of these little events, and it's really quite cool. And it's kind of nerdy, but it's like the old industrial engineering. That's what we're doing. We are industrial engineering out in the field. So lean innovation, efficiency, it's a big deal. And if people say, well, just slap it up, doesn't make that much difference, that's fine. They can do that. They just won't be doing it next year. Okay, Solar Star 1 and 2 in Rosemont, California, 747 megawatts CEC. That's the big boy. SunPower equipment. I already said about 4,300 acres. It's in LA County. Yes, sir.
So the blocks up there, so on our right there's a row of 6 blocks. How big is each one of those? I'm just trying to get the scale.
So this is probably, oh boy, it's tough. I don't know, maybe 3
That's
megawatts.
like 3 megawatts?
Yeah, it's hard to see the scale. And if you go online or something, you can see it. There's a little bit more comparison there. But there's different parts of it, along the land. You can see the other one out there. We did our first project last year for the federal government, Camp Parks in California, and that was kind of a big deal for us. We have a partnering agreement with a minority-owned business here in Minnesota, and they were very helpful in working with us, and it's a mentor-protege relationship, and it's Earthworks, and we really like working with them. DG projects are smaller projects. This is a wastewater treatment plant in California, Cascade Lake. 4.4 megawatts, kind of a normal kind of size. A big one for the wastewater plant, but that's also SunPower equipment. And then these, the portfolio build-outs I call in the Texas area, We're doing a couple different tracker systems. Both of these are dual access trackers. Okay, this one is probably no longer going to be used. It was a bear to install, and I think it's going to be a bear to have operate and maintain. And this new tabletop double access tracker, the old name of it was Paru, P-A-R-U trackers out of Korea. And I think they changed their name to some, I can't remember. But anyway, this install is now, we're putting up in a small town in Texas called Uvalde, Texas. And the project is Alamo 5. And that is going to be a 130 megawatt DC dual access track project. It will be the largest in the world.
How long do you think the tracker systems are going to be reliable? I mean, how many years of reliability will be on the tracker system since you're already changing to new tracker systems?
Well, this one will do it. I think this will continue to work for 25 years plus. I just think it has a wet kit drive system, which is a lot of moving pieces if you're looking at a hydraulic drive system. Now this one, boy, there's no reason it can't be 40, 50 years. That's just a really well-made piece of equipment. And we're thinking, the power purchase agreement for these bigger utility scale plants are like 25 years. So the agreement to pay for energy is a 25-year agreement, but we have seen plants that have been in existence for longer than that, and now we believe that the plants will be 30, 40, possibly 50 years, and you'll still be producing at a degraded rate, certainly, we know that, but, there's no reason to think they couldn't continue to produce. So, I'm just not a fan of that other tractor.
Is the dual access based on time of use or the rate we were getting for purchasing?
Yeah, and that's what you're talking about is kind of the business terms of it. So what Steve is talking about is why would a developer put on a dual access tracker? Well, because they get paid more in the peak hours, and if those panels are aimed at the sun during the peak hours, they will get a better solar resource, better output, better energy, better payback. So they say, well, we think even seasonally we want to adjust it, the azimuth, so we get the most power off it. In this climate, actually this latitude, a single axis tracker probably isn't needed. It's probably a fixed system is probably the best when everything is taken into consideration. A track system, you probably add about 15% of your cost, so you have to get at least that in your output. And if your power purchase agreement doesn't have what's called the time of day kicker, which basically says, from 4 in the afternoon to 7 in the evening out in California, that's their high peak load. And if you can track and get that every bit of the sun out, that'll pay for it, no sweat. Every system we put out lets us track, either single or dual. Okay, where are you? There you go. So now I'd like to introduce Jesse. Jesse Royers is assistant project manager for us right now at Mortenson, and we're happy to have him. He's got a lot of experience in community solar, and so I thought he could just talk a little bit about that. This is on the. Oops, there I went ahead and pushed it. You want to push the other one? Yeah,
there we go.
Right here. I want to just point this out. Last year also we built our first carport project in California. And this one was really interesting. Small project, what does it run? Yeah, 1.2 megawatts DC, but it was at a school district. And we had to build it and keep the school going at the same time. And maybe some of you guys do this for a living. Holy cow, that was hard. So anyway, I don't want to do another one of those, but maybe we'll have to.
Well, thanks, Steve. Hello, everybody. See a lot of familiar faces out there. Good to see everyone again. You probably remember me from my work with the Renewable Energy Alliance over the last few years. I took a little time off. Family brought a baby into the world last year, and moved down here to the cities, and I came to work for Mortenson very recently. So don't ask me any questions that'll get me in trouble with Steve here. I'm a recent hire, but the reason that I think I was brought on board is because of the exciting movement that we have now around community solar especially, but just the Minnesota solar market in general is an exciting market. It's amazing how much activity is going on, how much press that Minnesota has gotten. And like Steve was mentioning earlier in the talk, the strategy for Mortenson back in 2008 was go big or go home, and I think now it's go small and stay home. If we can land some of this business, then as a project manager, I'll get to manage the stuff right here in the state, and I'm proud to do so. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, is just this, particularly the community solar aspect of it. And just real quick, show of hands, how many people feel like they know the basics of community solar? Pretty much everybody. I expected that to be true. So I want to make sure I go into a little bit of depth, as if you've already been introduced to the program, then you don't need to go through the basics necessarily. We'll do that anyway. Only got about 10 minutes. It's a huge topic. There's a lot involved with that, and so we'll have some question and answer at the end, and we can talk about more of the specifics at that point. But over the next few minutes, I'll just try and touch on the high points and maybe get into some interesting detail. So let's see here. Why community solar? Why is this important? Well, if you look at, for all of you in the room that have tried to get a solar energy system installed on a business or a home, there's a lot of challenges. There's things like upfront cash. The biggest challenge, especially for us here in Minnesota, is shade, trees. There's usually something in the way. Maybe your building isn't facing the right direction. There's all these reasons why putting a solar facility on your building or your business or your home, why it's just not feasible. It's either too expensive or it just doesn't make sense. And so that's a huge portion of our market. There's people that want to adopt renewable energy, but they can't in that way. And so how do we serve those folks? Well, that's what this does. This helps folks reach their sustainability goals without having to put solar on their building. Some of the high points of it, you reach your sustainability goals. Most of the programs have no upfront cash needed. You sign a contract, but you don't need to put any cash out there. They're financed just on the energy savings. There's cost benefits. This is, I think, the best part of it. So just real briefly, you've got a community solar provider. There's some folks that Steve has mentioned, SunShare, MN Community Solar, whoever your provider is going to build this solar facility. You purchase, or you don't purchase, you sign a contract for a share of that. And that share produces a certain amount of energy. Xcel Energy sees that production, and that same amount of production goes as a credit on your bill. And the exciting part is the value of that energy produced by these community solar gardens is higher than the rate that your community solar provider is going to pay you. So you now will have two bills. Let's say it's about half. And so you'll pay your regular bill to Xcel Energy, and now you'll get a new bill from your MN Community Solar or your SunShare, or whoever it is, and it'll be less. So there's instant savings. And so maybe you're thinking, what's the catch? I can reach my sustainability goals, I can support Minnesota business, and I can have cash flow savings instantly. So why wouldn't you do it? I'm having a hard time figuring that out. The rates are fixed. 25 years is how long the rates are fixed for. There is an escalator. The rates will go up and they will follow Xcel Energy's rate increases. So it's a stable investment, and the cumulative savings year after year, they increase, and it can be very significant, especially for big energy users. So here's some of the things that you guys already know. There was some landmark legislation that came through in 2013. We have a renewable portfolio standard that's setting very aggressive goals, and I think we're even going to beat them. We're supposed to get to 1.5% of Minnesota's energy being procured from renewable sources by 2020. It looks like we'll probably get there faster. 30 times the solar generation by 2030. So some of the basic rules and regs of community solar: no one entity or person can can own more than 40% of it. The intent of the law and the intent of the PUC when they talked about it was to make sure that this really was a community-owned facility and that everybody could participate. So this isn't something that, you know, the big boys can just go and buy out. There needs to be at least 5 electricity customers because of that. The systems are limited to 1 megawatt. I think this is more than anything to help our utility be able to adopt and integrate that electricity. As a subscriber, you can purchase up to 120% of your load. So if you consume, like a common homeowner will consume, say, 8,000 kilowatt hours per year, well, 120% of that, you can purchase 10,000 kilowatt hours or whatever that math is. So there is a limit to how much you can buy, but you can go past what you consume to make sure that you can offset all of your electricity. And 1 megawatt power is about 200 homes. To answer the question about it, what's the scale like? A megawatt occupies somewhere between 3 and 5 acres, depending on how it's spread out. So it's a sizable facility. And I really like this infographic. I like the kind of way it pops, how there's this simple way of looking at the sun producing energy falling on the system that's captured by the utility. They can see those energy credits, and then those credits go to you and are cash flow positive. So what we were saying before, it's a fixed price for 25 years. There is an escalator at it, but it's lower than you would expect. So you see this 2.75% number. That's about what everybody expects these rates will increase over time. And if you look at historically how energy rates have increased depending on what period you choose, it's 4 or some people even say 5%. So it's a good stable investment. I guess, what other things do you guys want to know about community solar while I have a little bit of time up here? Go ahead.
If you already have solar on your home, can you still buy into it at your building at 10 or 20%?
I think that's correct. I'm pretty sure that's correct. The net metering agreements that the metering agreement you already have with Excel probably precludes you from purchasing more than that 100% total. Go ahead.
Well, if you're taking rebates and they hold you to the 120% rule, if you just do it on your own, you could go to 40 kilowatts.
That's true. That's true. Go ahead, sir.
Are there any committed solar gardens right now in the Twin Cities?
That's a great question. No, there's not. The program is just getting underway.
What about the one you built?
Well, that's true. I did. I built one. There's a picture of it. Maybe some of you remember this. The right Hansen community solar array went in back in 2013. A lot of the gray hairs you see on my head are from that project. It took about 18 months to put in. It wasn't the XL Energy program. It's a little different. These subscribers, I think there was 90 of them. It's a 40 kilowatt array, and they paid around $1,000 or $1,200 per share. So that was actually a cash deal. And then it's partially financed by the owners, and it's partially financed by the utility. It took a long time to build it. It was really kind of difficult and challenging to understand and figure out that whole process. So there are some examples. Now there's more of these on other co-ops like Bright Hansen. I know up in, where is it, Lakeland? I think it's up at Detroit Lakes. They've got another similar small solar array like that. But in terms of the XL program, in terms of the thing that's been hitting the news, no, it just got underway. You probably saw in the press the applications all went into XL, and they were amazed. It's 430 megawatts of applications. And this is huge news, 430 megawatts. Think about how much is in the state right now, and they got that many applications. And so what's going on now is XL Energy is looking at all these applications, and they're saying, can all of this fit on our distribution grid? And so the people that signed up first, they're going to get that first chance. Let's say that there's a 35 kV transformer out there, and it can handle 15 more megawatts of load before it needs to be replaced. Well, then the first 15 farms that get on the grid are not going to have to pay to upgrade that equipment. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's really kind of interesting to see what's going on in these early days. We think there's some urgency to get signed up. The rate is very good, and the XL system can only handle so much. So the early adopters are really going to get the best deal, is what we think. But it's likely that construction will begin in the summer, in the fall, and people will start seeing energy savings before the end of the year for sure. Go ahead.
Would Excel consider a battery system to, if there's so much interest in solar, to be able to store that and then maybe put it out at night and so on?
That's interesting. I hadn't considered that. There are, James could probably speak to that from Silent Power. There certainly is a very intelligent way to manage your loads with batteries, and I don't think that you would be precluded, even under your current interconnection agreement, if you have solar on your house already, to use batteries and just charge them at night. I think it'd be cost prohibitive, but yeah. I might be out of time. I don't know, Steve. You can kick me off stage if I am, but we'll be around after the talk as well, and I'd love to hand out some cards. We brought these community solar pamphlets. There's a bunch of them out there. If I didn't get enough of them here tonight, I'll hand out some business cards and just let me know that you're interested, and we can send out some more. But I really like this. It's kind of a simple version of what I talked about tonight, and gives you some more information about the community solar program and how you can involve. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
I just have one question, before you're done. Do you have any idea where you're planning to build these community gardens for the size of the left make 1 megawatt? Do you have any ideas? It's going to be the outskirts of the Twin Cities because of the space. Is that what you're looking at possibly? And then
Well, yeah.
save it that way?
We as the builder don't develop that. The developer does, like Steve's company or Dustin's company. They will take that and they will secure the land lease. They will, try to get the location to a feeder system that has capacity and that sort of thing. What we've seen from several of the developers, not just one, is that there's land all over. There's projects all over, all the way up to St. Cloud or down to Pope County or wherever there's an Excel meter and it's in their area, then it's kind of fair game. Obviously, the land in Hennepin is very dear, and you probably, as you get away from the metro area, you probably get a little better land value, I'd say, as a general rule. So but it's all over, all the way down to Winona and Mankato and those areas where Excel has service. Yeah.
In the wintertime, who maintains the panels? Does somebody actually remove the snow?
No, that's a good question, and that was a question that I had too over the years. St. John's is a really good example of that. Within a couple hours, the panels warm up enough that they slough the snow off. And anybody else that is in the field, can you verify that? I don't know. Do you see it? Because we saw it at St. John's where there's nobody that goes out and cleans them. And maybe 5 years ago, or maybe even 6 years ago, did they just stay on? Did they just ice up and stay on? Oh, okay. Then I don't know. That's what I've seen. But I guess if it's a really nasty year and they ice up, I guess you have to chop them off. I don't know. Yes.
So, two helpful responses. One anecdotally is for the installations like that, when you get it off the ground and there's sort of that space between it, you do get the sloughing effect more often than if they're like right on the roof and the snow kind of accumulate up and not have anywhere to go. And then second, to the question over here, if you want to, you can go to Excel's website, the Community Solar Gardens website that they have, and they have a breakdown, at least by county, where all 430 plus installations are applied to. So you get that idea for there.
Okay. That's simple.
Diving deep into it, I'd love to get your perspective. As I had commented earlier, we've got an impending possible labor shortage where this is not a Minnesota problem. The end of the 2016 tax credit, it's a national problem. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull workers from Connecticut or from California or from Texas. Because everybody, if these are real projects, they'll be driven by investors that want that tax credit. I'd love to get your perspective. How do you see this affecting the supply chain for locking up EPCs and locking up products, essentially in the next 23 and a half months, or 23 months?
The perspective that we're taking is through the lens of Mortenson construction, relationships that we have with our unions, relationships that we have with our other craft workers. And so we're taking a look at this as we would pursuit of any other project, and we're talking to our partners on it. So there's not a generic answer that I can give you, Dustin. I do know that it's a hurdle, and I do know if you occupy certain spaces of the supply chain, it can be a very big hurdle, or it can be just kind of business as usual. What he's referring to is that there's a rush right now in solar, and that the investment tax credit, a 30% tax credit, comes off December 2016, and it gets reduced to 10% possibly, or it may be, held intact. I don't think so. Or it could drop to zero. And the investors that Dustin was referring to, their incentive is to get these projects on the street, get them built, get them generating power, get them substantially complete so they can get that tax credit. That's a significant amount of money, 30%, right? So what we're seeing in the construction industry, and me in particular, I'm right in the crosshairs of this. When I go talk to our developer customers, and I say, okay, what projects you got going? Well, we're going to competitively bid out 250 megawatts to get done by October 2016. I said, and how many EPCs are you going out to for bid? And they say 7. And they go, well, take us off the list. Why aren't you going to bid? I said, we're not going to put that kind of energy into doing this when you're going to futz around for 6 months and try to get a number that's 3 or 4 cents less to build these things. You won't get it built. So why don't you do this? Why don't you come to me and tell me when you need to have it built? We'll put you in the schedule. We'll make sure it gets built. Oh, jeez. That freaks me out. How can we do that? We can't bid it out. Okay, you can bid it out. You can bid it. But what's happening is that there's so much work that needs to get done so they can get the tax credit that we're seeing a little bit of a reverse going on in the industry, that customers are coming to us and say, will you build this for us? And we say, we'd like to. And they say, how much is it going to be? And we say, what's your target? And they say, we need this much to make our PPA work. And we say, we can do that. And then we sign up, and then we get the crews, and we hire, and we get ready to go. Without that kind of certainty, it's really a crapshoot. So I understand, and I'm also like you, living it, every day. But there's going to be a lot of projects that don't get built.
And the other part of that question was, in general, the supply chain of product.
Yeah. Well, and what you're referring to there is you can probably get inverters fine, you can probably get cable wire, you can probably get certain tractors. You more than likely won't get modules, depending upon your module supplier. And then if you do get modules, are they the tariff heavy modules? I mean, there's a lot of long lead items. Transformers, another major part of this program. So you have to have a really long lead time and make sure you got all this capital equipment especially purchased, or you won't. You're right, you just won't get it. And it's already February 2015. And we're talking to people that want to get everything done by October, November, December of 16, and they're just not in that mindset yet. So the industry has a really great opportunity to expand very nicely with this rush at the end of the tax credit, but it also has a very good opportunity to implode on itself with a lack of supply chain. Yes, sir?
One more question. Are you having issues with getting licensing because of the solar arrays that be electrically charged? Do you have any issues with any of that with the state or anything?
Mortenson have the issues?
Well, is there any issues with having that getting done, or for the trades or crafts or whatever?
Well, there are some issues in town on who is going to, who owns the different scopes and what kind of training they need on those. So I think that's got to be kind of ironed out too. But from our perspective, we're getting our trained people in place, and they're the same ones that have been going around the country doing our work. So, and then just working with our local labor folks. But all of that, yeah, I mean, there is an issue. James?
Yes, I know other projects are, larger. Do you have to create up transmission lines to get to where you're going to backfeed it? Or do they always have to be right next to a substation?
No, we have a statistic of the number of miles of transmission line that we had to lay for our solar and wind projects, and it's in the hundreds of miles. So sometimes we do have to string transmission as well.
So you would get a private easement then for those transmission lines?
Well, we as the EPC contractor wouldn't, but the developer would. It would be in their scope to do that, yes. Yeah. I want to address one thing about the ITC, and we kind of touched on it. There's been some talk in the last couple weeks, maybe last month, about the ITC being extended, and then the production tax credit also being extended that influences wind energy projects. That'd be great. The thing that I think is important for this group of people to realize that it's not so much whether you believe in subsidies or believe in incentives or how much they should be. I think it's more of an issue of have a predictable platform to look at, so when you're making your business decisions, at least you know in the future what you're looking at. And so if it's 0, make it 0. If it's 10%, make it 10%. If it's 30 and you want to keep it for 5 years, and do that. But this year after year after year, you always see this fourth quarter rush in wind. Now we're seeing it in solar. In 16 is going to be just goofy. But if the policymakers were driven to flatten out and make the business people able to do work, that would be the best thing that we could do, is make it a predictable standard, whatever it is, whether it's incentive or not. I think I get off my soapbox. All right. We're going to have a big finish here. We believe that safety is incredibly important, and we also believe that we want people to come home in better condition than they go to work. So we're trying all kinds of things to make it safer on site. We have our daily bend and stretch exercises. Many of you guys do that too, I'm sure, on your sites. We also have a plan of our day where we plan each element of work, and then we work our plan, and we're measured by that plan. We have a first-time quality program. We measure any repeats that we have to do or any rebuilds, and we, again, time those and say our first-time quality, if it's 98%, that 2% costs us, boom, and we manage that. We watch that. And then this one is a big deal, the performance evaluation survey. If you're going to have an 80 or 85% return customer rate, they have to be satisfied at the end of every project, and they rank us. And they tell us how we've done, and boy, they're brutal. So if you don't really focus on exceeding your customer expectation, having first-time quality, being super safe, showing lean innovation, saving the customer money in the process, I get paid on the numbers that come out of here, or don't get paid because of that. So it's a big deal, and we want to make sure people evaluate it as well. We've done more than $9.7 billion in green or sustainable projects throughout Mortenson in the 60 years. We have over 250 LEED accredited people. LEED, a lot of you are familiar with that and that certification. We do have a green advancement team that we work on energy savings and also our sustainable and renewable stuff. And this waste management program diverts 50% or more construction waste from landfills. A couple years ago, we took this on as kind of a pet peeve, and we said, okay, all these water bottles that are out here, they don't need to be here. Let's recycle them. Let's go after this. And so right now we're at 50%, but 100% of our usage in our offices are back credited with renewable energy credits. Those are wind credits right now, and in a couple months those are going to be community solar credits. So we're switching over. Continuous improvement. I talked a lot about this already. This is cool. On this one project, we have savings of $645,000, 15,000 man hours because of our new way of doing things. And it comes out of the craft workers. The laborers in the field say, I can do this differently. Here's an idea. We take a video of it. We talk to the committee. They do it. 197 idea cards produced. Idea cards are just that. I have an idea. Put it in. It gets reviewed. Done. Save money. Be safe. Okay, then all this crap. This is the last thing I'm going to show you. This is the Walt Disney Concert Hall. It's in a lot of movies that you watch, and the one that I can remember, because I'm kind of juvenile about this, but it's that Get Smart movie. You know, where Maxwell's smart. Well, they had a big shootout by the Walt Disney Concert Hall. This building has no right angles in it whatsoever. So the building of it, actually, David Mortenson was the project manager on this. David, who's our new chairman now, he was the project manager. They had to design a 4D system where they took the 3D design and then added the element of time in it and figured out how to build this thing, and then they modeled it with computerized modeling before they built it. And that's why Mortenson became a leader in this building integrated modeling, BIM, because it had to. Because whoever the designer was very creative. There he is. Thanks. And so we use that in our solar too. And I got about enough time. This is a classic Mortenson statement. There's no greater gift we can give others than our time and treasure. We do so enthusiastically with a smile on our face and delight in our eyes. Where do guys like this come from? He's a real man, and that's his real culture, and it permeates all of our projects. When we're on a wind site, or we're on a solar site, or we're building a hospital, we get involved with the community, we give back, we try to make the place better than we left it. I mean, it really does happen, and people enjoy it, and the workers like it, because then they get to do something fun rather than just being out there building. Okay, that's all I got. Any more questions?